Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 13. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here, Steelers Nation. On this Friday show, Pittsburgh Steelers will host their preseason finale this Sunday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time against the Detroit Lions. So a lot to talk about today in the lead up of that, and then coming off that game will be the roster cutdowns and getting ready for the season. So busy time of year, Dave. How you doing?
Doing good. A bunch of 13s, huh? See, season 13, episode 13, huh? Yeah, look, an exciting time. The preseason finale, obviously, on tap here, and that's going to happen on Sunday. You might get to bed a little bit earlier or not on Sunday here, but geared up for what seems to kind of be shaping up to be, I don't know what, a dress rehearsal of some sorts. You know, Mike Tomlin, we don't know everything Mike Tomlin has said to this point because they've yet to drop any video or live stream the press conference from today, but enough's out there for us to have a little bit of discussion, right?
Right. This preseason finale will be a lot different than basically any preseason finale for the Steelers in recent memory. It appears, and again, we want to wait for the full context from Mike Tomlin, but Pittsburgh starters will play significant snaps. Usually the finale, the starters don't play at all. It's all backups because of the three preseason structure, and probably for some position groups like the offensive line just needing the reps in general, the starters should play quite a bit in this one. So we'll jump into the headlines that Mike Tomlin had to offer during his Friday press conference. And again, don't have the full interview out yet, so just kind of going off of some of the headlines. Tomlin announcing that Mitch Trubisky will be the starting quarterback against Detroit this Sunday, followed by Kenny Pickett, and then Mason Rudolph. And that's the same structure as it was last week against Jacksonville. Tomlin also saying that Najee Harris will play for the first time this preseason. Cam Hayward saying earlier this week he's going to play as well after missing last week due to that ankle injury suffered on the last day of training camp. So I assume that virtually all, if not all the starters, everybody who's healthy will play in this game.
Yeah, healthy is the key thing there, and we'll have to see how all that shapes out. And I would think that the offensive line, they'll play until Tomlin and the rest of the coaching staff has seen enough, right? And however long that might be, I guess the real question is now, and you know, Mike Tomlin said it'll be light on his feet when it comes to playing time there. So I would reckon by the time, usually within about an hour of game time, the reports circulate and we find out who's more than likely going to play and not going to play. And I would think the guys that have been out a considerable amount of time or any new injuries that those guys would probably sit. Personally, I don't care anything about seeing TJ Watt play, but I suppose that potentially is still on the table at this point. And I guess the bigger question is how long will Trubisky play and how long will Kenny Pickett play before they give way to Mason Rudolph? Man, when you look at if you look at the snap counts to date, if I would have told you what these things are now going into the preseason finale, before training camp started, you probably told me I was full of you-know-what, and that somebody probably got injured of the three. And the snaps so far, Mason Rudolph, 55, Kenny Pickett, 42, and Mitch Trubisky, 28. I wouldn't have guessed that would be where we're sitting at right now heading into the preseason finale.
Right. The way they've done it the first two games is the third string quarterback has worked the entire second half. And so that was Pickett in game one against Seattle and Rudolph in game two against Jacksonville. So that's the big reason why those guys' snap totals are much higher than Mitch Trubisky. So the question is, will we see that again in the finale? Will Mason Rudolph, the number 3 quarterback in this game as confirmed by Mike Tomlin, will he really work the entire second half? That seems like overkill to me. So the question to start with is how many, drives and snaps will Trubisky get? He got what, 2 in the opener, 3 against Jacksonville. I'd like him to play at least the first quarter. I mean, it's more of a rep drive based thing. So I want to see him get at least as much work as he got last week, maybe a bit more as well, and then Pickett, ideally rest of the first half into the third quarter. And then if you want to give Rudolph the fourth quarter, that's fine. So the snap count's been tough to predict, and we'll see how it looks this weekend.
Have they played Trubisky enough up until now?
It's probably been a little bit less than I've expected. But again, if they're going to use this as the finale, maybe their plan all along, or their tune-up, I should say, in the finale, maybe their plan all along was to play Trubisky more snaps in this game. So I think I'll let this game play out and have a better answer for you.
Are you expecting a quarter for Trubisky? And I mean, we all know how game flow can kind of change. How many snaps do you think they need to get him in this game?
I don't know if there's a hard and fast number, but I don't want to see just 2 short drives from Trubisky either. I mean, I'd like to see, to the point where he's at least able to get one long, decent drive out of it, 7+ plays, hopefully put some points on the board. That would be ideal. And so it is a little bit of that game flow dependent that you talked about.
A poor showing by Trubisky and another nice showing by Pickett results in what?
A really interesting question and conversation piece for us on Monday is kind of what that results in. I know some people have said, Trubisky's starting this game. That means this thing's still a battle. And in theory, it may be, but because the other starters are playing, I don't really see this as any sort of indictment on Trubisky's chances to be the starter week 1 against the Bengals. I said all along, I think, the way this has been framed is it's Trubisky's job to lose. Well, he's been a bit volatile. He's not lost the job. And so the only way that changes is what you outlined. If Trubisky really just tanks against the Lions and Pickett has another good to great performance, barring that, Trubisky should still be the guy for week 1.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the things we're looking for in this game are what? Trubisky to probably like to see Trubisky have his best preseason game to date, obviously. And all 3 of them, it goes without saying that, but would really like to see Trubisky maybe open this thing up and go 11 plays and put the ball in the end zone and, maybe follow it up with another nice drive and then take it to the shower, after that. As far as Pickett is concerned, it's kind of what we've talked about all the time. What we've seen, plus maybe him getting the opportunity to push football down the field a little bit more than he has. And for Mason Rudolph, this might be his Super Bowl. And it's funny, there's been a lot of chatter these last couple of weeks about the Lions possibly, maybe, sort of, kind of, maybe speculated as a team that could be interested in maybe trading for Mason Rudolph. And Dan Campbell was asked during his press conference yesterday, in so many words, is it possible that this team goes outside the organization and adds another quarterback? And he smartly answered that. Well, it's possible, but it's also possible at other positions as well too. So I don't feel he overly tipped his hand right there, but he did say that, of his backup quarterbacks of David Blah and Tim Boyle, that would like to see one of those guys, essentially step up and take control of that second spot. So, This is potentially and is setting up to be a kind of an interview of sorts for Mason Rudolph for 30, I wouldn't say 31 other teams, but several other teams here, and to see where that goes, because I think you would agree right now. I mean, it seems almost set that Pickett will be the number 2. I suppose that it could still go the other way there. And if they kept all 3, that, maybe Pickett opens up as, the number 3 quarterback for the first week or 2 or something along those lines. But kind of what's been dictated in this rotation and Pickett's play so far, it leads me to believe that at worst he'll be the backup to Mitch Trubisky there. So I guess a lot of kind of subplot storylines to go along with this, and Mason's play might end up being relevant in this one.
Right, which begs the question exactly how much does Pittsburgh plan to play him? They want to get more looks at Trubisky and Pickett. And again, this whole process since the spring was to learn as much as you possibly could learn about Mitch Trubisky, about Kenny Pickett. You already had a pretty good understanding of what Mason Rudolph could or could not do. But if you want to try to potentially have any sort of dangle for trade bait, then he's kind of, you play a little bit against some backup guys. Rudolph may look good the way that he did against Jacksonville. So, will Detroit, could they be in the market potentially? I know Tim Boyle will start this game. Jared Goff will not start for the Lions. I've mentioned the Rams quite a bit, and that seems to be even a stronger, connection, not in terms of any actual reporting, but just based on the tea leaves. John Wolford struggled last week. He's dealing with a fingernail injury on his throwing hand right now. I think the Rams could very much be in the market for an upgrade there. So we'll see. As I said before, I think my expectation is still that Rudolph remains a Steeler. But I would personally be open to trading him and try to get something out of him, knowing that he will be playing somewhere else by 2023.
I'll repeat what I've said a couple of times now during the preseason. Why is there any need, unless you're legitimately trying to showcase him at this point? Where's the need to play Mason Rudolph a lot in this game?
It's not, except for the point that you mentioned about potentially, making sure other teams are well aware of what Rudolph's capable of doing.
I mean, I can turn my head for the first two, okay, and say, okay, well, just get him some time and make it look like a quarterback competition. But at this point, I mean, he's pretty much dead in the water at this point. I feel, when it comes to the depth chart and all like that, and it has felt all off season here like they're showcasing them. So we'll obviously see.
I mean, ideally, like I said, I would like to play Rudolph in the fourth quarter, but the problem is you don't really know how many snaps that's going to, turn into. It might be 20, it might be 6. If Detroit has long drives and the offense for Pittsburgh stalls, I mean, and there is no fifth quarter to play that one out and get extra time in. So, I mean, I think overall there's been enough snaps of Rudolph this summer that, teams are aware of the job he's done. So I don't feel like you're compelled or obligated to show him, because you've kind of already shown him through the first 2 games and just overall body of work. He's not a first-year guy. He's not somebody that's thrown 40 career passes. He's got a fairly lengthy resume for teams to look up and watch. So we'll see. It'll be at the top of the list just to get a feel for, what the snap counts look like across the board.
Absolutely.
Najee Harris, how do you feel about that? You guys know I'm not a big fan of playing Harris in this game. I know Harris wants to. Tomlin said he wants to, so I guess it really isn't a surprise. I just hope they're very, conservative, and by playing him, you mean 1 snap, and all right, you played Najee. Now get out of here.
I think we have a slight difference of opinion here when it comes to this. I'd like to see him get banged around.
Why? Why would you want that?
A little bit, just to get him in the timing down and everything that goes, get him in some game action here. Now, I'm not talking about playing him 14 snaps or anything like that, but I think a good 5 or 6 to get him lathered up a little bit. Now, obviously, I'll be sticking my foot in my mouth if he gets injured, but I don't think you should live in your fears here when it comes to him. And he has now missed quite a bit of now. We don't know for sure, since this team has moved from Latrobe back to the south side to the practice facility here. But I'm okay with him getting a carry or 2 and, 5, 6, 7 snaps, something like that. I mean, obviously he doesn't have to touch the ball in all those situations, but I don't have any issue with a handful of snaps here.
If I was Tomlin, if I was Matt Canada, I would have Najee Harris start. On the first play, I would go empty set. I would motion Harris out wide as the widest receiver and tell him to turn around, eyes to the quarterback, stand there for a bubble screen, and do not throw it to him. And then take Najee Harris off the field and say, hey, you played. Good job. You put a helmet on. I will live in the fears for both of us. Even just watching at camp, the first carry he got in team session hurts his foot. 1 carry, all it takes. I know he wants to play. Najee Harris is good enough. He'll get lathered up really quickly by week 1. I promise the lathering is coming for Najee Harris. So I would not play him or play him at the minimal snaps possible.
Now, obviously, you can call me a hypocrite if you like, because I don't want to see T.J. Watt out there because he has, he has sure. played. We know where he's at right now, and I don't think an extra 6, 7, 8, 12, 18 snaps make a difference there, and you really are setting yourself up for, in my opinion, for something going south there. But once again, for whatever time they put Najee out there on the field, he doesn't have to touch the ball every time. And here's to him. If he does get hurt, you can all put it on me, on this. But do you believe Najee when he says that he wants to see some time in these preseason games, or is that the company line?
No, I think he's pretty blunt and candid with his assessment. I think most players would like to get some snaps to shake off that rust and not have their first actual snaps inside a stadium be in week 1. So I understand his perspective, but man, we talk about this quarterback battle. Who's the starting quarterback? Is it Trubisky? Is it Pickett? The starting quarterback of this team is Najee Harris. He is that linchpin. He's going to be the focal point of this offense. You lose him, you're in big trouble. I think this team would be in bigger trouble to lose Najee Harris than they would to lose Mitch Trubisky. So to me, Harris is that rare in this era de facto quarterback of this team. If you lose him and you're running a season with Benny Snell, and I don't care how good Jaylen Warren's looked, it's a long season for your offense.
Now, obviously, if the first snap and a blown block through the B gap and
right, yeah, his offensive line may make that happen,
and Najee gets planted for a 3-yard loss on his back, I'll probably be yelling at my TV. I don't care what I said. Get him out of there. Get him out of there. Kind of thing there. But it does sound like he'll get some playing time, regardless of what our opinions are on this, and we'll see how that goes.
What's the it's the line from Rocky, "Cut me, Mick"? That's going to be Najee Harris, 1 snap in. I'm done. I'm out. I changed my mind. I hope that happens.
And look, the offensive line, it sounds like, and that's, want to make sure we qualify that, because things can happen between now and the start of the game. Sounds like Kevin Dotson's going to get the start at left guard, right?
It appears so. Some of the tea leaves had been that Dotson been working with the ones. And again, there's been a rotation with Green and Dotson throughout training camps. So I don't know if that's changed. It sounds like it has, to use your phrase, but I would expect Dotson to start. And I think, again, he's the best week 1 option. We've said that going into training camp. He's not run away with the opportunity like we hope, but just based on the scheme, based on their play, based on what Pat Meyer wants, Dotson to me is the better fit. Kendrick Green is such a dice roll. He does have some wins this year. There have been some good reps, but it's really 50-50 if he's going to be able to anchor and sustain, or if he's going to get just run backwards. And you can't be 50-50 as an offensive lineman. You lose 5 times in a game, or you win 90% of matchups, lose 10%. You're a bad offensive lineman. You're 50-50, man. That is unacceptable.
And I think we both agree. We're hoping that we're talking about, a nice performance by this offensive line across the board here, man. Anything better than what we saw in that game against the Jaguars will be something to talk about, I think, when it comes to that. So this is that's why they call it a tune-up game of sorts, and I would imagine some of these guys are going to play a fair amount of time on top of it.
The offensive line should play at minimum a half, and you may see some of those guys go into the second half as well. They need the time. They need the reps. They have to, there is no coasting into the regular season for this front 5. And so these guys should play at least the first half. And as you kind of saw last week with Dan Moore and some of the left guard rotation, I think some of those guys are going to play into the second half as well.
All right.
Defensively, I mean, Cam's going to play. I guess everyone's going to play. It sounds like with Minka and Watt. Anything you're looking for defensively?
Well, I think Cam said he wants to play or expects to play. I guess things can change when it comes to that. The positive thing there is at least we're talking about him potentially playing after that, ankle injury to close out training camp there. So it seems like he dodged a bullet there. We'll have to see if Highsmith plays in this. I think he has said that he's targeting week 1. So I guess where we sit here on this Friday right now, I'm not really expecting him to be out there. We'll see about TJ Watt and Hamilcar Rashed sounds like he's primed to potentially be one of the starting outside linebackers in this game. So that will be notable to pay attention to. I think, who was it? Josh Carney did a nice film room on him this past week. And, there are obviously some things for him to hang his hat on when it comes to that. So kind of look for him to build on that Sunday against the Lions. And, the other big story or player on defense that we've been talking about quite a bit is Mark Robinson. And don't know if Devon Bush and that ankle of his is going, what Sunday holds for that as we sit here right now. But regardless, I would expect to see Mark Robinson earlier in this game and get some quote unquote varsity time and take advantage of that varsity time on top of it.
Who's been the Steelers' snap count leader defensively this summer in terms of game action? I think Robinson's probably up there. I don't know if he's at the top. Maybe a Trey Norwood might be at the top there. But, he's gotten a ton of reps given some of the injuries with Marcus Allen and just the team not adding, different guys there. So should be a great opportunity for him in this one, especially if Devon Bush does not play. Miles Killebrew, will he play? That doesn't sound super promising right now for him. So he basically missed the entire summer. How about one name that may not play, we don't talk about a whole lot, and Arthur Millette? He's got a hamstring injury suffered at the very end of training camp. Hamstring injuries take a lot longer than you think to come back. When my guy may look like he's good, but the team's always very conservative handling those things. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but is that a potential IR to return guy for week one? I just want to throw that out there right now. And so, Millette's not going to play in this game, so the starting corner should be Witherspoon at left corner, Wallace at right corner, Sutton in the slot, a little bit of Trey Norwood rotating in as well. But yeah, I think people are underestimating and kind of overlooking Millette not being healthy and how that may adjust potentially the week one roster.
Yeah, that's a good point. Here's your snap counts for the defensive side of football so far. Trey Norwood leads the way at 91, and it's not even close to second. Derek Tuska at 69. Former Steelers safety Donovan Steiner, who will have to hit that news here in a minute, 67 snaps. Rookie DeMarvin Leal, 64 snaps. DeMonte Casey, 64 snaps. And then next on the list is two inside linebackers in Mark Robinson. Actually, three inside linebackers. Mark Robinson at 63, Robert Spillane at 62, and Buddy Johnson at 59 there. So, and then Delonte Scott also has 59 as an outside linebacker there. So, Mark Robinson's gotten his fair share of burn so far, and would expect that to kind of continue. He might play, 40, 50 snaps on defense and another 7 to 12, I guess, on special teams, right?
Right. If Bush does not play, then I expect Spillane and Jack to start. Those guys may work a quarter plus. Marcus Allen, I think, will come back in this game, so that does kind of replace Devon Bush in terms of the numbers if Bush does not play. And again, we do not know Bush's exact status right now. But he should still play quite a bit. But as you referenced earlier, the edge battle, Derek Tuska versus Rashed Jr. versus even Delonte Scott versus the waiver wire. There's a lot of competition there for two backup spots, presumably behind TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Sucks Highsmith's not been able to really work the last 2-3 weeks. Unfortunate for him. Still a third-year guy, relatively young overall. But certainly there are, in terms of spots that are up for grabs, there probably aren't a ton of them entering this finale. But certainly you have two big ones staring you in the face at outside linebacker against Detroit.
Devon Bush has played 38 snaps so far.
Probably about that for Miles Jack, too. I'm guessing part of that rotation there.
Right at same thing, 38 snaps. But Miles Jack has jumped off the tape. Devon Bush has jumped backwards off the tape.
Now, Bush was, as you said, was not terrible against Jacksonville. He was better for him. Right.
For him, it was a better game, this one. And I guess the fan part of anybody should hope that Devon Bush is healthy enough to play in this game, so maybe he can improve on that performance from last week.
Yeah. So any other things to look for in terms of position battles or groupings? Again, offensive line, backup offensive linemen trying to secure their spots, whether that's Trent Scott, Joe Haig, John LeGlue. Will Haig play in this game? It doesn't sound like he's going to play in this game. I know he missed practice earlier this week as he works through concussion protocol. Trent Scott, could he try to use this opportunity to cement a roster spot? A guy that understands and knows and gets the Pat Meyer coach system. He's been coached by him basically his entire NFL career. So not somebody that I'm really excited to watch play, and certainly not excited to watch him play potentially in the regular season. But in terms of surprise names, I think Trent Scott's one to consider.
Right. And we've noted that link between him and Pat Meyer almost from the moment that he was signed. Right. So We'll see how you got to figure he's going to get some burn on this. And, I guess the health of the rest of the offensive line will might dictate when he plays and how much he plays there. Go ahead and tell the folks about the transaction that happened.
Sure. I want to ask you one more thing about this game in terms of Miles Boykin. How safe is his spot? There is a decent salary associated with him, but I feel like he's pretty safe considering what he offers on special teams.
I mean, I definitely have him still inside the bubble now. I don't think it's unthinkable. I mean, if he's part of the final roster cut down, I don't think it would be a huge level of shock. But this is a guy that's continually run as the gunner, right? And done a good job. And especially when you think about what maybe the first couple of weeks of the season might hold for Calvin Austin. And when you just look at potential gunner types as a whole, I mean, who is that could wrestle that spot away?
That's a good question. I think the starting gunners, and it screws me up now that Gunnar Olszewski's on this team, so every time I hear gunner, that's where my mind goes to. But if Boykin makes it, I think it should be James Pierre as the left gunner, Boykin as the right gunner. If not, then I'm not really quite sure who it's going to be. I'll have to check some of my notes on that. I think Steven Sims has had a nice summer overall, but he just feels so redundant behind Olszewski that I don't really know where he fits. How
many special team snaps has Sims even played? How many
punts have there been? I guess is the question.
Looks like he's 9 punts, so he's not going to be a guy that could challenge Boykin for the gunner position, obviously, right?
Yeah, he's not a gunner; he's too small. Right. It is interesting though. Has Gunnar had the stat the other day? Has Gunnar Olszewski fielded a punt or even been back for a punt return this summer? I don't believe he has.
Oh, I don't remember, Alex.
And there's no way to reliably check that.
He's only played three special team snaps.
Right, and that's been some kick return work last week, which is
all 3 were kick returns.
Yeah, he has not done a punt, and so I mean, I've always proceeded with the assumption he is your kick and punt returner. He did that at New England, did it at a high level, but he's yet to do it against Detroit. So I'm curious if he's going to. I would think he would do it against the Lions if he's going to be your Week 1 starter. If not, that's something to I think at least acknowledge.
Who outside of Boykin has run at gunner?
I mean, it's been some guys who've been cut, like Christian Blake. I'd have to check some of my notes on backup gunners, and I don't want to make too much noise here with my paper. I'd have to check some of the notes, though. I mean, like Farland tried it in Week 1, and that was quickly scrapped. And so, again, the starters last week were Pierre. I can pull it up here as we talk if you really want to get an answer on that.
I mean, what I'm getting at is it just feels like, it almost feels like Boykin's a lock on that alone.
Yeah, I think he's done a really good job getting off some of these vices with 2 jammers, and his background as a receiver, as a guy that knows how to get off press coverage and things like that's very much the same when you're talking about that gunner jammer relationship. How do you beat press coverage and some of the hand use and swipes and rips and things like that? So
I would imagine Justin Lane's gotten a little bit of burn at gunner. What about Lyndon Stevens? Do you remember seeing him out there any?
Not in a game, I don't think. I'm going through the tape right now. It was Boykin and let's see here if I can find the names.
Chris Steele, was he one of them?
Might have been. I have to try to get through some of the later portions of this game. Overall, the first 3 punts, it was Boykin and Pierre, so they were pretty heavily used. Let me see if I can find one really late in the game here. Cody White, and it looks like Justin Lane, as you mentioned, getting some gunner work in the second half of the Jaguars game.
All right. So can we call it?
I think so. I mean, especially with Calvin Austin being down, and that would certainly give Boykin a hat on game day if Austin's not ready for week 1. I don't want to. There's always a surprise though when it comes to these roster cutdowns. I'm just wondering what is going to be that September or late August surprise.
I'm gonna go ahead and call it.
All right,
Miles Boykin's making the roster.
Fair enough. Montrevious Adams, I don't think he's going to play in this one either, and so I don't know the status of that ankle injury for him. Obviously, I wish he would have been able to play. So, is that a potential IR to return guy? Probably a conversation now for Monday, but another thought that's crossed my mind.
Yeah, we'll look at the did not play list after the game as part of preparation for Monday's podcast, and I think things will clear up a little bit more. Than what we have, because I mean, obviously we don't know the real status of guys like Adams and Miles Killebrew and stuff like that. And boy, if indeed those two guys have got to go on IR, and we've seen the Steelers do this before, the old roster roundabout. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But obviously, if you want those guys to be designated to return players, then they have to be on your initial 53-man roster after the final cutdowns. And then obviously the week leading up to the first game is when you can, send people to IR and then, bring people back to the 53 or whatnot.
Right. And generally the way Pittsburgh handles that, as you've mentioned on different articles, and they could get a terrible take on this maybe, they usually release veteran guys who don't go through waivers, so those guys can just come back. That's why Millette and Coward and Finney were cut initially last year, correct?
Right, and they're usually guys on 1-year contracts too, obviously. So
there's no dead money that hits your cap, right?
Well, no, not necessarily that. Just so you'd lower the amount of dead money, and also, you had that second year out there as well too,
right? Less dead money, I should say. You're not getting that hit is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
Right. So let's kind of look at players. There's no way you're going to cut DeMonte Casey right now, right? So he's not going to be a guy that you try to round about, because somebody might decide to sign him to a higher dollar deal. So I would venture a guess that if you needed a roundabout player, that it wasn't Casey. Now, Arthur Millette was one last year, right? But did he really have kind of the preseason last year that maybe a DeMonte Casey has had?
You're saying, did he have one this year?
Last year, Millette.
I would say Casey's summer was better this year than Millette's was last year.
Okay, I would agree with that for sure.
Plus, Millette might be one of those IR guys that's being, needing to stay on the roster initially.
That's true. But I know I was just comparing the two as far as Millette's situation last year, and Casey's situation this year. Who else? I'm trying to think
1-year guys. Trent. I could see a Trent Scott. I think he's not waiver eligible, right?
I think he's vested, because he's on a vet benefit contract.
I could definitely see that because he wants to stay in Pittsburgh. He knows Pat Myers, so he may just be one of the initial cuts, and then very similar to Coward. Well, actually, Coward went somewhere else I think last year, but same idea.
But Coward circled back. Remember,
did he circle back?
Yeah, remember there were 3 players. It was Arthur Millette, Coward, and B.J. Finney.
Okay, you're right.
Because they had to get Tuitt, McFarland, and Banner to IR after the initial initial roster was set there. Okay. I'm trying to see who, unless it's somebody like Marcus Allen, who, or Boykin. Those are the other.
But aren't they
two.
Subject to waivers? Because Boykin was a waiver claim, wasn't he?
Oh, okay, yeah, Boykin would be subject to waivers.
I think Allen would be as well, still on his rookie deal, or no?
No, because he was a wait a minute now. He was a restricted, so he's not unrestricted. So he might be subject to waivers too. So good point. So it really leaves you down to one name, and Trent Scott. I guess Chaz Green too. I mean,
I don't want him circling back. He can circle on out of here. I'm sorry, Chaz Green. I've been very hard on Chaz Green, but he's not. But
I would think that if you're looking at veteran players that don't have to clear waivers on a roster roundabout, it seemed like Trent Scott might be the guy.
Is there anyone else? Because they might need more than one name. I mean, could we get crazy and say a Chris Wormley? Is that too crazy to suggest? Probably.
Let's see. I mean, I guess it's not totally crazy. There's only there's $600,000 in potential dead money there, but is that going to be a player that instantly maybe could entertain another offer out there?
Right.
You know?
Derek Tuska, is he vested? Probably not.
No, I don't believe he is.
Okay.
And normally these have been guys though on minimal salaries in the past though too.
True. Yeah, so I think Wormley's less likely. I'm just trying to think of any other potential names that may surprise you a bit initially.
I mean, Spillane's on is he that's another one that's a restricted signing though, right?
Yes, so he would still be waiver eligible.
I believe so.
Yeah, so it's harder this year. So we'll see. I don't want to probably talk about more of that on Monday a little bit, but that deadline's coming up pretty quick here.
Right.
And I would say there may be fewer IR guys this year than last year, potentially.
And look, you still got to play the game, and hope nobody gets injured that needs to go to IR too on top of it.
True. That's a fair point. So a lot to think about, a lot to consider. Speaking of Tuska and the outside linebackers, I do want to mention the transaction here in a moment, but Mike Tomlin was asked earlier this week, basically, why did you release Jannard Avery? And Mike Tomlin said basically just for a football decision. And now Avery's found a new home. He signed in Tampa Bay one day after getting released. And so it sounds truly as if they just didn't think he was a good scheme fit for the defense.
Right. And you look at his tape and him giving up the edge a couple of times there. And I once again, as I've said, the moment he was signed, I thought his run defense was okay. But I worried about him as a pass rusher. And look, this guy has always kind of been that kind of tweener type too. Like, what do you do with him? Mm-hmm. And theoretically I think we've had discussions in the past with a guy that's not on Steelers. Josh Uche is another one, right?
Yeah, the undersized guy out of Michigan, right. So I thought with Avery, it just felt like he played a little too out of control and maybe not within the defensive structure, as you said, losing contain and things like that. And Pittsburgh just want guys who play a bit more within structure, and that may have been the reason. Look,
I was already getting heartburn about Jannard Avery potentially, being the number 3, and I got to see more from Hamilcar Rashid, but I mean, I thought he represented himself well in that tape this past week. So hopefully he can build on that in the finale against the Lions.
Right. So just wanted to drop the quick note on Tomlin giving some sort of explanation for Jannard Avery. All right, so to the transaction that happened yesterday, I believe it was, that's the Steelers claiming defensive back Elijah Riley off of waivers and a corresponding move waiving second-year safety Donovan Steiner. So Riley with 7 career starts, all with the Jets last year, played with the Eagles as well. And so Andy Weidel, who was with Philadelphia the past couple of years prior to being hired by Pittsburgh as the assistant GM, knows Riley a little bit. Steiner, as a guy that I talked up and was pretty wrong on, thought he would have a good summer. He was pretty disappointing and did not make the year 2 jump.
Missed tackles got him, man.
Yeah. He should be a good tackler. He's a big frame guy. He was unblocked, and that Jacksonville game missing tackles. He was just pretty poor.
And I think he had 5, I think, for in 2 games.
Oh, really? Was that high?
Yeah. That's not going to get it done there. Here's the quick 411 on Elijah Riley is was at Army and was a more of a cornerback kind of defensive back slot. I think some in the nickel there. And at the NFL level, he's kind of moved to the safety position. And a lot of people might not remember he intercepted a pass from Joshua Dobbs last year during the preseason game there. He is not afraid to tackle. He's not afraid to play down low in the box. So, I mean, for a guy to join the roster this late and wind up making the 53, I mean, odds are against him. However, if you got a guy like Miles Killebrew that might not be ready, and you're kind of looking for that extra guy that maybe can help you on special teams and give you a little bit of emergency safety depth here, can Elijah Riley sneak in on the number 353 spot here?
Yeah, it'd be tough to do, but stranger things have happened before. Again, with what Casey's been able to bring, the versatility of a Trey Norwood, I don't know if I see that lane. It would certainly take Killebrew not being in the mix for whatever reason, assuming injury there. So I think that'd be tough, but he's got some experience, and that'll serve him well trying to jump on a moving train.
All right, and I haven't had a chance to drill deep down into his tape.
I haven't either. I know he's got some versatility. You said he was a corner initially, right?
Yeah, he played some corner at Army and kind of has made the transition to more of a safety now.
Okay, fair enough. But I think again, this just shows
he can tackle though.
Yeah, well, they need that for sure. The missed tackles were definitely disappointing from the secondary last week, Steiner and others included in that. But you're seeing Omar Khan and Andy Weidel with their first kind of full control of this roster. They didn't get to be in their positions until, late this summer. And so they're going to make more changes than maybe what you typically will see during a training camp because, you got an outsider coming in and Khan really getting to evaluate the roster as he sees fit for the first time.
Right. The Weidel stamp has begun.
There you go. The trademarked phrase, the Weidel stamp. Any other Steelers news here? I do want to mention one, and it's not been confirmed by the team, but it appears to be true. Ike Taylor appearing on the Pat McAfee show yesterday and said he's going to now be a scout for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Don't know exactly the when, the capacity, all the details there, but Taylor, according to him, joining the Steelers front office.
It'd be interesting to see that play out, see when and if it actually gets announced, and if we don't even know if Tomlin was asked about that today or not. That would have probably been maybe that got asked and answered and we don't even know it.
Right. We don't know. It may be more of an unofficial type thing. I know Taylor was with the team in training camp. Omar Khan had former players like Aaron Smith and their two scouts who were former players, Mark Bruner and Chidi Iwoma, speak to the other Steelers scouts about what to kind of look for and just things like that. So, and I'm just looking at this right now. If I see a change on the Steelers, I'll have to check that later. But might be a change on the Steelers front office page in terms of some titles being shifted around. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, Ike Taylor. Now, I know some people will say, will he be the cornerback scout? Typically, that's not how that stuff works. You scout areas. Now, I don't know exactly how Taylor's going to work. I don't know if he'll be a true area scout or not. But generally, it's not where scouts are looking at one position. It's more areas and it's cross-checks and things like that. But it's a little less, there is no cornerback scout on this team, and there are areas of the country that guys scout.
All right, and maybe he'll just start off as kind of an assistant first,
Right. Yeah, he may be in that more unofficial capacity before trying to move up the ranks.
All right,
Dave, anything else to talk about today? Anything else to preview or any news that we need to hit?
What are your thoughts about the Lions? I mean the Lions should they got the rookie over there in Hutchinson, right? I mean, they've got some guys that should test, especially these tackles.
Yeah, I think, the Lions have a good pass rush with Hutchinson and Charles Harris and some of their other rotational guys. So, Pittsburgh's offensive line maybe won't be challenged quite as greatly as they were against Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville had a better front overall, but Detroit, has some players as well. And just, Pittsburgh to their own. I don't care who they're playing, they need to play better. This offensive line has to do a better job and just needs to be more consistent and more technically sound.
Let's see. They got Hutchinson on one end. They have Brockers at defensive tackle there. Charles Harris on the other end. I'm trying to think out. Old Isaiah Buggs is still on that squad right now. Alex Anzalone is a guy that in the second level of that defense, they'll probably get some pretty good burn at linebacker off the ball in that game. Their tackles, it'll be fun to watch the Steelers edge rushers go up against these tackles in Taylor Decker and Panay Sewell. And obviously we got to see those guys last year in that game. Both in the preseason and the regular season. Got some pieces on offense there. It doesn't sound like Jared Goff is going to play in this game, right? It sounded like they were going to start. Who was it?
Tim Boyle
in this game. So I don't think we're going to see Goff in this game, and it'll be interesting to see how much of their starting offensive line plays and how much they play on top of it there.
Right, I know it's not going to be a 4 quarters of starters. I don't know exactly who's all going to be playing and for how long, but last time Pittsburgh saw Detroit, they put up 200 plus on the ground. So I just want to see general run defense and how the front seven looks overall. And, the Lions had some heavy personnel and did a nice job running away from, the Steelers front in terms of whenever they would go with their over fronts and, shifts to the strength and things like that. So just generally speaking, just a, overall litmus test, has his run defense improved after getting just torched the last time they saw Detroit?
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, I think we're good to go here. Before we get to some reader emails and close out today's show, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
Absolutely. And I guess, too, we should tell some before we get into to picking this game here. Let's see if I can pull up my notes here real quick. Here we go. Winning season has officially returned, and with NFL preseason live, there are plenty of opportunities to win at MyBookie. Whether you're a seasoned bettor or a first-timer, MyBookie gets you the most for your money with a double deposit bonus up to $1,000. All you got to do is sign up, use promo code TERRIBLE. That's promo code terrible on your first deposit, and you'll instantly double your money with MyBookie. It's simple. A $250 deposit puts $500 in your account, and you can use it in your funds to bet on as many individual games, contests, or props as you want. Bet on team win totals, predict the Super Bowl winner, or use the MyBookie prop builder to give yourself the edge you need to secure the bag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. And obviously, you can bet on all preseason action there, and MMA and baseball. They obviously have several things that you can bet on, and futures and all the stuff that goes along with that. So make sure you, if you got some betting needs, you check out mybookie.ag and use promo code terrible when signing up to take advantage of that offer that they have running there. With that, let's look at the lines real quick here, Alex, on this game. I thought the Steelers were favored the last time I looked in here. Let me go to preseason lines on mybookie.ag, and we find, what'd you think about the Aaron Donald thing?
I mean, honestly, there should be some sort of league punishment for that. I don't think the cop out of it's practice, the players govern themselves counts. If Donald does that in a game, he gets punished. If he does that walking down the street, he gets punished. So I don't know how there's a safe haven of practice time there. Now, what the punishment should be can be debatable, but I don't think it's the idea of it's just practice is an excuse.
Yeah, but I think the reports out there, according to CBA rules and stuff like that, that really any discipline right now would have to come from the Rams is what I've read out there.
I mean, if he were to it's also because it was a joint practice. There's an opponent. It's not even an internal thing. There's an aggrieved extra party. So if he had hit a player and knocked him out cold, the NFL doesn't step in at all. I mean, I just don't think that's really how they would proceed if there was an actual, serious injury that occurred.
All I know is the Rams play the Bengals, I think, in this preseason finale. I don't know if I'd put I'd be careful with a quarterback if I with the Bengals. And if indeed Donald sees any action at all in that contest here. All right, line. The Steelers are favored by 4 at home at Acrisure Stadium against the Lions. The over-under on this thing is 39. What are you doing with that 4 points? You want it or are you giving it?
I'll go with the Steelers in this one. I'll be optimistic for the finale. Why not? I think better quarterback play overall should hopefully produce more points. I
am with you. I'll take the Steelers and lay the 4 points. That means if the Steelers win, they would go undefeated in the preseason. Woo! Nice. Over under 39 points in this game.
I'll say over. Starters are playing. I'll go over, but I mean, who the heck knows?
I'll go over with you there. So we're lock and step, holding hands right here in the preseason finale, moving forward here. So, all right, with that out of the way, let's get to a few of the emails in the email machine.
And you'll be happy to know the Tomlin presser's finally been uploaded. It's very short, just about 5 minutes. Maybe we can do just 2 or 3 emails, and then we'll get to Tomlin.
All right, we will do that. A lot of them, let's see, quick battle of the voices. From Justin. Hey, Dave and Alex, quick question for Dave. How would you recommend starting the road to becoming a cap czar like yourself? He says, I know Joel Corey puts out great content in Over the Cap, has a book out, but what helped you learn the most about the cap personally? That's the first question there. I tell you, even way back when there used to be this newspaper called the USA Today, and they would put salaries in there. And I always used to try to match up, reports from other, Pittsburgh papers and all like that. And I would try to use the backwards math to try to figure out stuff that way. But it really wasn't until kind of more of the dawn of the internet and all like that, and reading the CBA and seeing the breakdown of the total breakdown of contracts over the years. And, Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk's always been good over the years at laying that stuff out. And obviously very, regardless of the team, sometimes you'd be able to catch the breakdowns in the paper, and, the dawn of Over the Cap and laying out, how contracts look on paper that way. And it goes without saying, been a Joel Corey fan for years, and I love reading the CBA and trying to keep up with that as much as I can. It's just been a lot of trial and error and picking up little pieces as I go here, to be quite honest with you. And as much as I like to think that I know about the cap now, I still learn little things, maybe one or two things every off season or whatnot about some of these things like that, intricacies, things that don't often come up that often. So, it's just, you got to dedicate yourself to it and learning all aspects of it and everything that I laid out there. And obviously, look, if you're not listening, if you like cap and CBA talk, you got to listen to the Joel Corey podcast. He comes on the show every once in a while, but he's got his own podcast that I highly suggest that you listen to episode to episode, because there's a lot of great info in there. And the Over the Cap book that's out there is good as well too. There's a lot of basic stuff that you can learn in that as well too. It's just a labor of love to me. I've always kind of liked numbers and fascinated by the cap, and that's kind of what's gotten me to where I am right now. To answer Wednesday's question, you both have voices that go well with each other. Most podcasts put me to sleep with their monotone and mundane voices. Well, we got anything but that, right, Alex?
That's true.
You guys have passion and energy in your voices. It makes you two stand out. He says, I would like to hear Dave's voice on helium someday. That would be hilarious, he says. Thanks for that email here. Edward Arnold writes in, Dave's voice reminds me of Woody Page from ESPN, possibly retired. He says, I guess it's opinion-based, but not meant as an insult. None taken there, Edward Arnold. I can't remember what Woody Page sounds like. I know.
Sounds kind of similar. I get that.
Okay. Dan Devlin writes in, great listening to you fellas. You asked about your voices. David, honestly, I listened to the podcast for many years and did not even notice your stuttering prior to that clown bringing it up a couple of years ago during your email section. He says, as far as Trevor's dad's
all right, we can stop there. We don't need his opinion.
There is nothing but a pack of camels a day can't fix. Yeah, but get Alex on Marlboro Reds in a box for about 6 months. We'll fix Alex's voice there. Partly that's probably what's wrong with mine outside of the stuttering. Anyway, regarding the O-line, how would you evaluate improvement? Will you break season into quarters and see what progress is made? Do you need to give Meyer some time? Are you looking to make moves right away? He says, do you see a backup defensive end being addressed with a pickup or a trade? I would be surprised if they had, unless some injuries pop up here that, outside of Montravius Adams, I don't see them doing anything on a defensive end. No, Dan. Alex, handle the question about how do you evaluate improvement with the offensive line?
Sure, I understand the idea of taking it in stages and pieces and chunks, and every quarter is kind of a baseline way to look at it. And you understand that hopefully things will get better as the year goes along. That's expected and understandable. But this offensive line has to be better than what it is right now come week one. Once the games count, there aren't any excuses. There really is no time. It better be at least a serviceable level that, yes, can continue to grow, can continue to get better. But, the urgency is immediate because you can't have a bad first 4 weeks and try to climb out of the hole. They did it last year, but doing it again, 1-3, whatever the start was, that's not a sustainable model.
I stutter so often that people hardly notice probably now.
There you go.
It's
you
like
stuttered through it.
The Blues Brothers they tell me how often does the train come by? So often you don't even notice. Let's see here. Jason Kelly, I think both have very lovely voices that complement each other. It's like a father-son thing. Old gravelly Dave and young buck Alex. He says Reddit sucks, Twitter sucks. Don't listen to those deadbeats. He says the stutter. He says I don't think of you as having a stutter, Dave. I just think of you having too many thoughts and not enough mouths to get them all communicated. That's basically the long and short of it, Jason. There. And why are we spending so much time on this? Because we figured we'd have some fun with it. I don't think Alex and I are losing any sleep about what people say about any of that. It's just, before the season starts, why not have a little bit of fun with it there? One last one from Jason Robinson, the dulcet tones of Steelers Depot.
All right.
Hello, Dallas. Jason Bodine from Paradise Town in Las Vegas. Bodine, he says for Dave. Y'all asked us to critique your voices and tell us who sounds better on the podcast. He says, well, I'm here to tell you that neither one of you would be mistaken for Vin Scully or Chick Hearn. Well, there we go. He says, but listen to the two of y'all is really just like listening to two buddies talking football. And honestly, that's better than any of the talking heads or any of the 4-letter networks. That's why y'all have such a long-standing following. So don't worry about the stuttering, the whiny voice, or any minutia, because all I hear is the official, unofficial voices of the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right. So
thank you, Jason.
There's that. Thank you, Jason. Once again, we're just having fun with this, folks. I mean, if you can't laugh at yourself sometimes, who can you laugh at? I'll gladly laugh at Alex more. People give me something to laugh about. All right, Alex, shall we call it an hour podcast today?
Yeah, I think that's a good time to wrap up today. We'll come back on Monday, one day after the Lions game, and recap the finale and probably our last roster predictions and all that fun stuff, because cut downs will come quick on Tuesday.
Absolutely. So in the meantime, you can follow Stuttering Dave on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Whiny Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do, want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar, and follow the directions for an ad-free version that way. We will have a lot of content coming at you, really starting right about right now on through the end of the game and on into Monday. And Alex and I will be back on Monday to wrap up the preseason finale, get you ready for the final round of roster cuts. We'll probably talk a little bit of salary cap there and a little bit more. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.